Hello, and welcome to Lead What You Live podcast with Tina Lizzio. I always start off by saying I have a very, very, very special guest with me today, and he is very special. And at the same time, he is also very unique. He is unique and special to me personally. His name is Dr. William Beecham, and he has been my therapist for the past almost 13 years now. So I am so grateful and appreciative that he was willing to come on Lead What You Live and share with all of you many of the things that he has passed on to me. He has taught me. He has been a mentor. He's been a coach. And these things I have been able to then implement in my life, make changes, transform, and pass on to others and those that I coach into leading what they live. So without any further ado, good morning, Dr. William Beecham.
Morning, Tina. How you doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much, like I said, for being here. It's great. So going back, like I said, we met in the 2011, it was. 2011, I was referred to you by a friend, so we're going on almost 13 years. You are here in Boca Raton, sunny Boca Raton, Florida, in the Sunshine State with your private practice. And, there is, while you do see patients, on Zoom as well, who are from afar. It is, for me, it's always preferred to get together with you in your space, the energy of your space and the container that you hold for me. So I so appreciate that I have that opportunity to see you here. I have referred you to many family, friends, clients, strangers, and acquaintances, and I know from feedback from them, that's the only way I would know that they have contacted you and been in amazing conversations with you and how much you have supported all of them. And so for that, I really am truly grateful. It's not only who you have been for me, but who you have been for all of the people that I have referred you to over the years. 13 years is a long time, and it's a short time. It's gone by so fast, so fast. So my time with you began after divorce. So it was after divorce, and I was struggling. I found myself for the first time feeling like I was depressed. I never knew myself to be a depressed person, always feeling I'm positive, I'm upbeat, I'm optimistic. And yet at the same time, I was feeling really low and depressed. And I think it was for a number of reasons. There were things going on both within family, career change. I don't think I had fully processed decision to divorce with 3 young children that were elementary age at the time, now 3 thriving grown adults. And so you really, really supported me. And so I will go back to that time, during the course of our conversation. But I would like you to start with our viewers telling us, where did everything all begin? I know that you did, thank you for your service, that you were in fact in the Air Force for a few years.
Yes, I was in the Air Force 4 years.
4 years. And what were you doing in the Air Force?
The government decided they needed me to be a journalist.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so organizations have newspapers and radio shows. So you remember the movie Good Morning Vietnam?
Yes.
So Quenauer was a member of the same team I was on a different office.
Oh, wow.
Adrian Quenauer.
That's interesting. I remember you mentioning that, and it's hard to believe, but you are 77 years
I'm
young.
77 years young.
You
Yep.
have a lot of life wisdom and experience, and that all plays into how you support others and support your patients. So after the Air Force, you had that stint in the Air Force, and so take us on a journey of life after that.
I finished my undergraduate degree in psychology, then went to the University of Alabama in clinical psychology, graduated there eventually with a PhD, which means I did a dissertation with the topic of the dissertation was alcoholism. I had by that time worked in a prison system, worked in a mental health center, and just came back to Florida to set up a clinical practice in 1986.
Right, so it's been a while.
Yeah,
It's been a minute. You've heard a lot of stories
I
and
know. I can't believe so much as time's gone by.
seen so many things. So go to that dissertation. So that's a big. We have all these epidemics and pandemics. We have mental health crisis. We have all sorts of addictions more than ever. And so alcoholism, even back then. What did you discover in your during the research in your dissertation?
Yeah,
Tell us about that.
a dissertation is an independent research project. PhD really is about a dissertation. So you finish all this the coursework, and you take a comprehensive exam to prove you've mastered the basics. And they say, give us a proposal for a dissertation, and you have to come up with it on your own. So my focus was on alcoholism, and so I was wondering. We knew that people who grew up in an alcoholic home were more likely to have develop an alcohol problem later in life, and so I wondered why. I tested the theory that the people who grew up with drinking environment in their childhood see others drink, and they use that as a base to judge how good or bad is your drinking. So I set it up so that I presented people with a description of a fictitious drinker who either had a small, medium, or large size problem, and then also asked them to tell me about their drinking and their father's drinking. And it turned out people use their father's drinking as the comparison, the standard, not their own. And that if you grew up with a father who's either a teetotaler or a roaring drunk, you will tend to overestimate a person's drinking problem. But if your father's a normal drinker, you tend to underestimate. It's a U-shaped curve. In other words, the title of the dissertation was appraisal of drinking behavior and paternal alcoholism.
Interesting. So, right, you would that makes sense. You talk about paternal. Does it make a difference whether or not it was the mother or the father or both in the household?
I didn't look at that. I don't know.
Right, just focusing on the paternal. So I know I am ACOA, adult child of an alcoholic, and uh, my mother has been in recovery for half her life. God bless, and so I can see that from observing those behaviors when I was young. My tendency as an adult initially was to avoid, wanting to avoid being in relationship with individuals that had any kind of seeming alcohol addictions or substance addiction. So I probably am in the category of overestimating. You know, somebody tends to have a drink. They like to have a drink every day after work, and I'm thinking, well, that's an alcoholic if you need to have a drink every day after work. And I think it really boils down to one's relationship to alcohol. How is it impacting your life? What would you say about alcohol and impact on consciousness and what is too much?
Well, of course, alcoholism is fairly easy to define. The more difficult question is what's sobriety? So, for example, you have attending an AA meeting, you have two kinds of people come. The people who were caught drinking and driving and various kind of problems. They're in AA because alcohol hurt them. They got in trouble for it. And you also have people going to AA who actually are sober. So you've got dry drunks who are not drinking, but they want to drink. And you got sober people who don't really want to drink. So what's the difference? There's two people standing side by side, neither drinking, but one sober and one's just a dry drunk.
Hmm.
Well, I define sobriety as a love of consciousness. So if you love your consciousness, why would you impair it with drinking? Alcohol diminishes, obliterates consciousness. Do you love your own consciousness? And so that got me interested in the whole field of spirituality. That AA is, for example, is called a spiritual program. Well, what does that mean? What does spiritual mean? So,
What does it mean?
well, spiritual means self-consciousness. Your consciousness is your spiritual life. So you got religious, and then you have spiritual. So religious is things I can observe. I can observe your drinking, but I really can't observe your sobriety except maybe in the absence of drinking. And then it's hard to do. So I began asking, how important is it? How can a person grow spiritually? How can you um, have a spiritual life? What's a what's a spiritual event? What's a spiritual activity? How do you accomplish something that's spiritually meaningful? What's spiritual behavior? So that question got my attention for a long time. It's hard to define.
It is hard to define. I think a lot of people want to define themselves as spiritual, not religious, but I'm not even certain that they could define what that means.
I can see your religious behavior, but I can't see your spiritual behavior. So I define spiritual as as something within your consciousness. So I had a kind of a spiritual event one day, 2001 or so, 2002, and I was musing about the biblical passage, we're supposed to love God with mind, heart, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And so I was walking my dogs one day, and the question occurred to me, what does that mean? How exactly does one love God with mind, heart, and strength? And how do you love your neighbor as yourself? What are you supposed to do?
Where's the manual or
Yeah.
instruction on how to do this?
And so I was familiar enough with the Bible to know that the Bible doesn't address that. It's just not there. And so I said, okay, well, God, I want to love you, and I don't know how. So if you give me a hint, show me, we'll do it. And so I had this um, kind of a blast of consciousness come in. It changed my life. And so I began to become more conscious of things. And then I began to wonder, okay, well, if that was a spiritual event, what did I do? I stumbled on to a spiritual moment. How? And so it occurred to me that what I did was I said, I want to, and I was humble. I didn't know how. So I think a spiritual event is those two pieces. You have to want something and be humble. And so that started me off trying to understand how to work with people's intentions, and that I can see your behavior, but I can't see your intentions. So I began to work with people from an intentional point of view. You mentioned that depression. So I had a question for you. Let me define moods as two variables. On the one hand, you have what you want in life, and on the other, you've got the events of your life. So if you have in your life what you say you want, you can tell me that you're happy. If you see you might get in your life what you say you want, you're tell me that you're motivated. But if you see in your life that you might not be able to get what you say you want, you tell me that you're stressed or worried or concerned. And if you can't get in your life what you say you want, you tell me that you're sad. But if you have no wants at all, you've given up on the whole business. With no wants, now you cannot be happy, and that's depression. So the question is, you don't have to answer now, but the question is, are you sad or depressed? Because there's a pretty big difference. Depression is really a hopelessness. If you ask a depressed person, you want to go get some coffee, they'll always say no because they don't want anything. You don't ask them. You say, "Come on, get up. We're going. I'll loan you my willpower for the moment." So um, uh, when people get depressed, the cure is to get them to want something. As soon as you start wanting something, they begin to get better. Anyway, I kind of ramble there.
No, no, that you the question always comes back to, what do you want?
What do you want?
And that's in coaching, and I'm all about life strategy in your health, your wealth, and your relationships, and that trifecta. And it has to start with, well, looking at, I think, what is true. What are the facts? What are the actual facts? What are your beliefs? What's your narrative or your belief system around the facts of where you are? What is true right now, today, and then a discovery of what you want. Many people can tell me what they don't want. Well, I know what I don't want, but it's very difficult sometimes to know what it is that we want. So I want to just stop right there for a second on that specific thing. How do we go through the process, do you say, about finding what we want? How do
Good.
you guide people in that path of discovery
Well,
for what we want?
well, wanting things is the work product of free will. Animals have instincts. We got willpower. And so with willpower, I can say, I want this. I want to be a psychologist, wanting to have a family. Well, when I say I want changes my life, well, the bigger picture is in childhood, parents actively discourage kids from having wants because it really makes it difficult to run a household. Kids have to get up on time, eat on time, dress on time, go to school on time, do homework on time. When is there opportunity to develop free will? So kids turn 18 and parents say, okay, now go do what you want. Kids say, well, what's that? They've got no experience with it. So somewhere, parents ought to help a kid develop a notion of what the kid wants at the same time running a household and staying in control. It's hard to do. Furthermore, if you're direct with kids and say, okay, what do you want in life? Kids don't know. And they know they should. So the question is very irritating to them, important, but bothersome. So kids will say things to throw you off the track so you don't ask, get you off the trail. And so you can't be direct with kids about asking what they want because they don't know and they don't like the question. So you have to be indirect. And one indirect way to do it is tell the story about you figured out in your life what you wanted. It's a true story and it's your story. Um, there are three standard ones for our community. The three standard ones are want to grow up, find a partner, make a family, raise your kids. So true love in kids is the first goal. The second goal is meaningful employment that help contribute, help us operate the community we live in, get a meaningful job, we'll pay you for it. And the third goal is orderliness, fit in, don't break the laws, don't break the rules, don't be a criminal. And so if you don't know what you want, the three are, get a family, get a good job, and fit in. That works. But on top of that, how do you actualize your life? There are no rules except to say, what do I want? You got to put your finger to the wind to see which way is blowing and test things out. It helps to have someone to talk with about what you want. Uh, one way to figure out what you want is to set a goal and go out and make mistakes, or you can benefit by the experience of others. So I think that's what my job as a therapist is to help you discuss what you want before you have to go try it out and make all the mistakes. Somebody who can,
Help you understand why you want what you want? Does it?
well, the implications of it.
Because I know you always say, well, sometimes we just want what we want and there's no big why behind it.
There's no
Does it
why.
matter to have the big why? Simon Sinek talks about start with why. Why, why do we want what we want?
Well, I tell people don't answer why questions because the only accurate answer to why questions is I want it. You know,
Yes.
so people ask why questions often are want to get at your reasoning, which they'll promptly attack and confuse you. So
Hmm.
why questions are not very helpful. I can ask about history, but asking why can be assaultive.
Yes. Yes, that I came to understand. So it sort of starts in that process. A patient comes in, or even I know when I'm working with somebody again, it's understanding their beliefs, their mindset, their relationship to themselves, to others, to life, to money. Um, uh, and so without a foundation of like where are you and is it true that you are depressed? So like I said, coming back to that, I said I feel like I'm here. Why? So tell me what's happening. What brings you here today?
Mhm.
I feel like I'm depressed and I'm not a depressed person. And I have, peers, I know many people on SSRIs and antidepressant or anti-anxiety medications. I mean, maybe I need to go on something for a couple of months. I don't know. I just know that I feel the weight of a lot of things. And so I am so grateful to this day that you said, after speaking with you, that you said to me, there are there are great drugs that are on the market that are needed and do support some people, okay, that may be in need, at least short term, of trying something to bring them out of thought loops or their depression, clinical depression. He said, but you are experiencing situational depression. In my assessment, you're not you aren't a depressed person. And so you had actually at the time recommended to me something over the counter called SAM-E, and I really appreciated that then. And whether or not a few hundred milligrams of SAM-E actually did something or not, because it could be the placebo effect that I thought that this thing is going to make me feel better, it in fact did. Because many people in our society, read a statistic. Well, we know that we're only about 5% of the world population, and yet the United States consumes 75% of the pharmaceutical drugs. So it's very quick to prescribe a pill. And I know people that have gotten caught being on multiple different types of psychiatric medications. And while you're not an MD to prescribe them necessarily, what do you say about people being prescribed medication for all of the mental anguish, especially since the pandemic, that people were in a mental health crisis? So, what to do when it comes to medication versus therapy, or I think really the integration of both. If people are going to be on a medication, it should be coincide with going to regular therapy as well, because these drugs really aren't meant to go on it whether you're 14 or 45 and be on it for life, to my understanding. But this is what happens. So, what do you feel about the prescription, about people being on all of these medications?
Well, if you go to a psychiatrist, they'll tell you that, yeah, you can get the pills, but you need to go into therapy. The psychiatrists always recommend, or they should recommend psychotherapy, which is where the real change is. I went to Nova University about 25 years ago and took a psychopharmacology class, so I'm an hour short of a master's degree in pharmacology. And what I found out is I don't need those drugs. My understanding of them is they don't really add things to your life. They take things away. They make you insensitive to things that were upsetting you. So not being sensitive, you feel better, but you've lost something. You've lost a piece of sensitivity. You haven't amplified you. You've turned the volume down on something, and it doesn't really solve problems.
Right. It's putting a band-aid. Would you
Yeah,
say is it a Band-Aid on a problem? But not
yeah,
even really.
yeah. The antidepressants, SSRIs, and the SNRIs, those groups, they tend to make you emotionally insensitive. People complain that they feel emotionally numb. And that's what happens. So if you're overwhelmingly upset, yeah, it can make you feel better, but it doesn't really solve the problem.
And so what is the answer? So how do you tackle it? Certainly there are, well, first of all, I have an understanding of the whole uh, gut, heart, brain coherence, the connectivity, between all of them. And so it's a real thing. I've gone, deep, and my number one value is health in all its domains and longevity. The older I get, the more I value longevity and waking up in another day and the importance of gratitude and appreciation. But looking at when the gut microbiome this is getting into health, but when the gut microbiome is off, these things can then impact your brain chemistry. And people don't realize that's not talked about. But there are other things that can be going on. Do you exercise? What are you fueling your body with? What kind of foods are you eating? People eat a lot of sugar. If you do drink, alcohol is a depressant. How are you sleeping? There's so many things that can impact the mood and your energy that can cause these negative or negatively perceived emotions. I mean, every emotion is feeling, at least feeling. It's like, okay, I'm feeling something. It doesn't feels good. It doesn't feel good. And when we don't feel good, we're looking for a therapist or looking for some sort of emotional support to these perceived negative emotions. But they definitely can come from it's so many things. It's not even like one thing. And so you have been amazing. I find you are yes, a clinical psychologist, but what is unique, and I use the word unique that I have found in my experience in working with you, is you do also present like a life coach. So it can look at how we can interrupt thought loops and patterns and things of the past where one might be stuck, but it is also focusing that attention and intention on what do you want and to move somebody forward. And sometimes you might allow me to go on a Tina tangent, and sometimes you will, knowing when it's valuable to let me speak because there is a way that we do process in speaking in talk therapy, and other times it is beautiful interruptions that don't necessarily feel like an interruption or certainly not a judgment to redirect. off of a direction that I may be going. And I've heard this sort of feedback from others too, in this unique way that you sort of there's a therapy component, but this is also this life coaching and strategy. And so I have been able to take a lot again of what I've learned in all different ways. I started a transformational journey back in, more than 10 years ago, and see that it is very difficult to change. It's difficult to change and transform. How do we change?
Well, I think your personality consists of exactly of the list of things you know you want. You are the list of wants. So you open your eyes in the day and you say, okay, what do I want to do with today? And if you can achieve what you want, you're happy. If you're there are obstacles, you're trouble. If you can't, you're going to be sad. So um, your biological uh, status, I guess, is a piece of that. But I don't think it's a very big one, actually. I think the more meaningful part is what you know you want and is it available to you. So one approach to adjusting feelings is to say um, that realize, I guess, that there's only one way to be happy, and that is to want what you have within the space of a day.
Oh, yes.
There's no other way to do it. And so my adjustment is to say, just for today, I accept what is, and I want what I have, and I choose to be here just for today. So what I do is I adjust what I want so it exactly fits the facts, and I can't be happier than that. That's as much as I can get out of that day. So, it doesn't mean I want to stay the same always, so I'll try and change tomorrow. But when tomorrow becomes the day, I either accept it and I'm happy or object to it and find myself unhappy. So I don't like being unhappy. So I adjust what I want so that I can
To
be
match
happy
what you
today.
have.
Yeah. I practice
And if you
acceptance.
don't like what you have, then change your wants. And God
Right.
gave us all free will to
Mhm.
choose what we want.
I find that a much more uh, satisfying response than give people pills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so let's talk more about free will. You
Okay.
mentioned before about loaning others free will. Can we loan others our free will? I have an desire to inspire. I believe that inspiration and one finding inspiration within themselves when they discover what they do want, going on the discovery and exploration of what you do want and seeing somebody get excited about the higher possibility that they can see and visualize the greater version of themselves. So um, how do we go on this journey?
Well, let's look at the obstacle. Childhood is a time where we take life from our parents. We take food, clothing, and shelter. And so every kid has a demand, a really important purpose to keep parents interested in you and not annoy parents. So fighting with parents is a bad idea because parents control all the things to life. And so we all grow up with a fear of abandonment. That's the that's the bugaboo.
Oh, yes.
To claim free will, you have to resolve your fears of abandonment. If you're going to go do whatever you want, well, what if what you want bothers your parents? What if they don't like it? So when you turn, 18 or whatever, and you start taking responsibility for your physical self, you can then figure out what you want and go do it. Uh, but as you go do that, you're going to feel this pang of distress. How will others feel about it? Will people reject me if I do this? And so that's the fear of rejection. And I can't get rid of it, but I can suggest you should be conscious of it. Freud said 4 words: unconscious motivations cause symptoms.
Unconscious motivations cause symptoms.
4 words. Now you know what Freud said. So the unconscious motivation is I don't want to be abandoned. And so everybody has that. And so if you will
Because if you abandon me, I'm not loved. I'm not worthy.
well, and that's
Because
more
it's also like there's a
that's
everybody questions, am I enough? Am I worthy?
well the two
Am I
sides.
lovable?
Yeah, the two sides that are the physical of food, clothing, and shelter, but the other is the spiritual. Or does somebody want you? To want your companionship? So that's it. That's the spiritual side of anxiety. What if I'm rejected? We want to be wanted in a relationship. Being wanted is a very valuable and powerful feeling. We look for someone who wants us and we can want. So there's a partnership. I want you and you want me. When that works, it's true love. So, um, I make the point that, the subject of most movies and songs and life, in our culture is true love. And so true love is this wonderful arrangement that people have it, want to keep it, and the people who don't have it are suspicious of it. And I can't explain it to you, but when you have it, it's really wonderful. So how do you get true love? You
Is it
know,
a choice?
true love's a choice. I so a
It's
true
free
love,
will. We have our free will to choose what
yeah,
we want. So I choose to love.
a free will relationship uh, is something two people build, and it's a unique structure. It's a unique arrangement in all of creation. It'd be unlike what anybody ever had before, and he will have again. The two of you have to build it together. What would true love be for us? And so we have to figure it out and develop our own language and our own system of meaning. It's whatever we decide it is.
So, in the trifecta of health, wealth, and relationships, I find that the most important one is looking at the relationship domain. We don't do this life alone, and the quality of our the relationships impacts the quality of our life experience. And so, I imagine that more than health concerns, which will come up, and financial concerns, which will come up in therapy, is it fair to say that most of the conversations that you have center around conflicts and issues around relationships, past, present, or anxiety of those in the future?
Yeah, in relationships, I start with basics that men go to women looking for sex. Most of us know that. And that women come to men looking for love. And so in relationship, women control sex, you get pregnant. And in relationship, men control love. And I like to make the point that that's biblical, because the biblical commandment from Moses in Deuteronomy is that a man's job is to love God with mind, heart, and strength. So for that commandment to be meaningful, men have to control love. Because if men don't control love, the commandment's a joke. And so biblically, in a relationship, men control love.
And that's shocking to people,
Yeah, like what?
right? What? What do you mean? Okay, so speak more about that.
Um, well, for a man, love's a decision. I can choose to love you. And so what a woman waits for is for a man to choose to love. And so you look at a guy and say, does he really want to love me? Does he want me? And so um, I like telling a story. I was talking to a guy on the phone one day, and he said, "It's good that we're on the phone. My wife just kicked me out of the bedroom. She got mad at me. She screamed at me. She said, 'Get out.' She slammed the door. What do I do?"
Okay.
So I said,
Sounds like a 911 call.
"Yeah." So I said, "Go back in there and say, 'Look, I love you and I want you in my life.'" He walked in and did that. He came back out. She said, "Well, quit doing the thing you're doing. Come back in." So what what I notice women do is you have 4 steps. You say, "You did this thing. You know I don't like it. That means you don't want me. Get out." Well, the issue is women judge what they see against, would he do this if he wanted me? And
Mm.
so to say,
They
okay,
make it like if you really loved me, you wouldn't drink. If you really loved
yes,
me, then
yes,
you wouldn't do this or
right,
that.
right. So everything's a test, and they you cut to the chase, say, yeah, I do want you, and that still a problem, but the big issue is off the table.
Mm. So men control the love.
Men control love.
And so what are women to do who are
Well,
looking and so what are we doing in today 2024 in society today
well,
for men and women both looking for love?
Well, you're ready to respond to a guy's love, and you have to find a guy who's willing to offer it to you, and it's you have to wait for a guy to offer. You can't initiate. You have to wait for the right guy, not the wrong guy, to offer you love. And when that offer is made, you have to decide you're going to respond. You don't have to, but men control love, so you have to wait for a guy to offer it first.
You see men as very afraid. I see it feel like a lot of men are afraid because of women's empowerment and more women are educated today than ever before and they're empowered and you have these dual income households and then there's like the roles and responsibilities within family dynamics and so women are being taught make your own money and have your own career and don't rely on a man and so what is this doing to society and the for women to be able to find men and men are terrified to take a risk and they wait for women and then women are also often being too assertive, I believe,
Well,
in their
well,
approach.
I think women fill a vacuum. I think guys leave the vacuum. So. I think guys
What does that
don't,
mean?
well, it means that most men don't realize that men control love. And
Yes,
so I point out, what's a woman willing to do to have access to a guy's love? You'll take his name, wash his clothes, cook his food, keep his house, give him sex, bear his kids, raise them, and hold his hand while he's on his deathbed, all because you want access to his love. So how powerful is that? Did you know you have that much influence, power over a woman if she wants your love? And so the choice to offer love is the piece that most men don't know about. So they go around thinking that women control sex and love. If women control love, the world would be full of it, and it's not. So I have this
that's
discussion.
huge what you just said.
Yeah,
If women controlled love along with sex, then the world would be full of it.
yep. So men control love, and the biggest problem is men don't know that.
So what are they doing?
Well, they're walking around confused, um, blaming women for things that are a guy's fault. I say if there's no love in a relationship, it's the guy's fault, not the woman's fault.
I remember you saying woman never leaves a man when she feels loved.
Never
Doesn't happen.
does
So
it.
well, yeah, I mean, there's something obviously missing
Yeah.
for sure. What about fear? What about the fears that are happening within a relationship dynamic?
Well, the
And just
fear
fear, there's fear in general. Why is there so much fear?
Well, the fear of abandonment is a childhood issue. That we take life from our parents in food, clothing, and shelter. So kids have a profound obligation to keep parents happy, and that there's an echo of that in adulthood. It doesn't go away just because you grow up. And I can't erase it. I can make you aware of it. Freud said unconscious motivations cause symptoms. So the trick is to become conscious of it. You see, yeah, I'm feeling that feeling. You can dismiss it. It won't go away, but you can stop letting it control you. Just
Letting fear control you.
Yeah, just identify, yeah, I'm afraid. If I
Fear is of the ego.
Fear is a fear of death.
All fear is a fear of
All
death.
fear is fear of death.
Mm.
And I can't take that away. Yeah, I'm afraid of dying. But
So if you're
I'm
not, if you're at a place where you're not afraid of dying, then theoretically you would have no, you believe people should have no fears,
no, fears won't go away. I can just point out that
not let them control you,
yeah, that's
not
where
let
it
them
comes
guide
from.
you. You don't
May,
make your decisions based on fear.
yeah, so maybe you don't want to ride a motorcycle or jump out of an airplane. So you can do it to prove you're not afraid, but
Right.
you still will be afraid. You just master it. But is that really worth it?
You're weighing the risks.
Right,
Yeah. And, Jim Rohn says all of life is a risk. It became risky the day we were born.
right.
And at the same time, wait till you see the bill or the cost of not taking a risk, though. It's not taking a risk. And so I think people are afraid to take
Yeah,
risks.
the other side of it is, does God care what you want?
Yes,
Well,
I believe that.
yes, I believe it's
I
true.
think
I'm fond of citing the Lord's Prayer, often said at AA meetings, Our Father who art in heaven. There are four personal, selfish wants in the Lord's Prayer that as people can name them. Can you name the four?
uh,
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be
hallowed
thy
be the
name.
name, thy
Thy kingdom
kingdom come,
come, thy
thy
will
will
be
be done
done.
on earth as it is in
Yeah.
heaven. Give us
This
this
day our daily bread.
bread and
Forgive
forgive
us
us
our
our
trespasses.
trespasses.
We forgive those
Forgive those who
trespass.
trespass against us, and lead
It's
us
not
not
in
in
temptation.
temptation,
My favorite.
and
Deliver
deliver
us
us
from
from
evil.
evil.
That's four wants in the Lord's Prayer. So does God care what we want? Apparently so. So our job is to use our free will.
Use our free will for
Tell,
what we say, for we want to take action, committed action for what we want.
and in all sincerity,
And
tell
it is
God
our
what we want.
destiny
Yeah, tell
to
God what we
to
want.
fulfill.
Hmm.
God's want for us is to um, have what we want.
Okay, so
It's a
when you have,
destiny, and to raise our consciousness.
right,
So for me, from the spiritual place, I am my consciousness,
mhm,
and so if coming from I am my consciousness, then it is for me to continue every day to there's nothing really to do. I feel that it's about being. It's about being. We're human doings, and so it's about being and about being more aware and being a higher consciousness and elevating that. You wrote this book, Spiritual Christianity. Amazing. You should get this. Spiritual Christianity. This is the second edition that you came out with in 2013, I think it was. And it really gets into that distinction of understanding between religion, Christianity as a religion, and spirituality. That's very unique
Yeah, I was
and
amazed
supportive.
when I was writing that. I looked at no one had claimed that title before. How could that be?
No one had claimed it at the time.
No,
Spiritual Christianity.
no, no one had addressed that issue. I was stunned.
And the actual, like, in a sort of bullet or nutshell, how would you explain what that is?
Well, uh, again, in my little sidewalk experience where I experienced this moment with God, the structure of it was I said, I want to love you and I don't know how. So I realized that a spiritual act, a spiritual event is when I say what I want. And so the entire book is based on reflecting on what do you want. So it builds a spiritual life by collecting a bunch of wants. I use a lot of biblical references and try and um, suggest different wants you might want to adopt so that your personality consists of a great many spiritually oriented wants. You are what you want.
And this is, those listening should know you are, have a great understanding also of the Old Testament and New Testament, Judaism. I know you can recite perfectly the mezuzah, the prayer there, and so you have an understanding. It's not This is not just about. Uh, that's why you go into the spiritual aspect of things. It's not about whether one is, Jewish or Catholic or
No,
Christian.
God is consciousness itself, has to be. And so I think religion is an effort to encourage people, direct people, guide people to embracing, addressing what it is to be conscious and to focus life on the conscious experience of it. So religion has rules and guidelines. Uh, I think the reason for them is to uh, guide people to run their lives based on spiritual principles. It's not the principle; it's the practice of using consciousness to guide your life. So
Yes.
every religions have different levels of spiritual demands. It's we all kind of start with one and move from one to the other. There's lots of different religions, and they all fit a certain level of development. There's no one that's right. It's the general spiritual approach that's right, not the particular religion.
Not the particular religion. Intuition. How powerful is intuition? Do we all have intuition? Can we strengthen our intuition? I feel that for me, my intuition is a superpower, and
Well,
it has served me well in life when I pay attention. And so, what is intuition? I almost feel like it's God speaking to me.
well, before your
That
intuition started, you had to want something, and so as soon as you want something, God responds to your want by whatever it is. If you want an event, God will not instant like in in Harry Potter, but over time, for 50 years ago, I said I want to be a psychologist, and that one statement I
mm,
want changed my whole life. Not quickly, but it changed everything. So saying what you want is where everything comes from. If you want to know something, God will give it to you because you want it.
and then intuition.
Intuition is you want to understand things, you want to be guided, so God will guide you. It all, if you,
Starting with the want, free will for what you want, and let God guide you, and that gives you the intuition in making your decisions. You have an intuitive sense about what the right decisions to make, and the quality of the decision making is so important in our life.
well, you only recognize the hint if you want it. So you can get hints that you don't want, you ignore them.
Mm,
So you have to want it.
well, that's true. And people ignore a lot of things for all different kinds of reasons. What about you have conflicting wants?
You got to figure out what you want. Something comes first.
Right? Because otherwise we're on a road to nowhere.
Yep.
What advice would you give women out there today when they're looking for a mate? Do
Uh,
they need to follow the book, the rules, the rules on dating?
yeah, I'm pretty sure a woman will be good to a guy. There are women who've been damaged and hurt in relationships, got their heart broken. But if they don't want to be hurt again, they can stay kind of guarded. But if you're willing to tolerate pain, pain and suffering are different. Pain is a hurtful event, but suffering is fear of pain. And you got to get over the fear because there's no pain-free
Put
path
your
in
heart
life.
out there for to go on the chopping block again.
You're going to get hurt. There's no
It's
way to
good,
avoid it.
right? For men and women.
Yeah. So if you can tolerate the pain, you can take a risk. And so um, I like the little pamphlet. It works as a guideline. It's basically paint a picture in your consciousness of what you
A little
want.
red book?
Yeah, paint a picture in your conscious of all the things you know you want. Make the picture it's complete and elaborate and every possible thing you could possibly want, and keep adding to it until you're done with it, and then release it. And what happens is it kind of floats off, and God takes it as one of your wants, and will slowly build it in your life. But you can still reject if you don't want it, but it will come back to you in a positive way.
And what about for men? How would you advise these men who are going out there? They've been cheated on by their wives. They've been cheated on many, many men. I can't, it's for all the narrative that men are cheaters and the men and unfaithful in relationships. There are actually statistics will show there are a lot more women today that stray. Again, I guess not getting the love that they want and
I
need, but that stray in relationships than men.
Yeah, I think men
So
fail to offer women love. Women will contribute a lot to a relationship, expect to feel loved and wanted. They don't feel that, so yeah, they stray. I think it's the guy's fault, not the
mm.
woman's fault.
And so what do men need to do?
We need
How do
men
we
need to
support the men?
men need to distinguish between a mother-son relationship and a man-woman relationship. It's
Mm,
completely different. And most guys
mm.
like they have no idea what the difference is.
So does that are they consciously or subconsciously actually choosing women that might be
Replace
like
their
their mother?
replace their mother.
That's very common.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So in a
If their mother was a strong woman, they'd be more inclined, do you think, to go with a woman that was a strong woman versus
yeah. A manly approach is to say, I want love and I want a partner to join me in my purposes in life, and here's my list of purposes. Do you want to join me in that? So I want us to have a loving relationship and get these things done. So men need to lead. And for that to happen, men have to know what men want.
they have to know what they want? I
Mhm.
think women really do actually want to get behind a man. I think men don't realize that men I don't think men realize that women actually really wanna get behind a man
Mhm.
who is a leader, who has a vision and a mission, a compelling
Right.
vision that they can get behind and support them. Um,
And the limitation is childhood fears of abandonment. So guys have to come to grips with that, and then come up with what do you want your life to be? What do you want? So it's something you can't do for a guy. He has to do it on his own.
he has to figure it out himself.
Yeah.
And so I take my baggage and you take your baggage and let's agree, let's choose to unpack our baggage together.
Well, confidence and arrogance look the same from a distance. An arrogant guy will act like he has done important things and he hasn't. But a confident guy will say, "I set a goal and achieved it. Set another goal and achieved it. Got some more goals. What do you think's going to happen?" So what you ask for is what goals have you set and achieved in your life?
Mm,
So as a guy, a goal setter, does he know what he wants? Has he done it? And so an arrogant guy will say, "I got lots of goals. I haven't done it yet, but treat me like I have."
mm,
No.
yeah, it's amazing. Thank you so much. Again, it's you've been so supportive. Family, friends, clients, strangers on the street. Call this man. He's super, super unique. And what
Too
I
kind.
also I appreciate is that you don't know when a client walks out the door if they're gonna call you to come see you again tomorrow, in a week. You'll never see them again. It will be an ongoing thing. You are just holding the space for if one feels called to come and have a conversation, they'll show up, and if not,
Yeah, I never know what happens. Rarely know what
right,
happens
yeah, there's
next.
no particular plan. It's not like, well, which I, we're going to work through these traumas, and so it'll probably take about 12 sessions and 3 months to work through these things. So, because that's unrealistic.
I don't know that.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And so being able that's why I said sometimes I'll see you a couple times in a month. Sometimes, bigger gaps of time go by. And, but you always with consistency, which is so important. Again, the space that you hold for me, feeling safe and trust. Having that trust you talked, it's so difficult for people today to feel trust. Who can we trust? And so, I'm really grateful. So, and thank you, because being my therapist in that personal role, and you serve many people, uh, me also saying, well, I'm going to have my therapist come on and talk about some of the things that we've talked about in our conversation again that serves me well. I take what I have learned, but also from your wisdom and your mentoring, not just me in my life, but then how I can then go out and serve others. So, Dr. William Beecham, Boca Raton, Florida. Look him up and get his book, Spiritual Christianity. Again, certainly DM me with any further questions. You can find me uh, Lead What You Live podcast with Tina Lizzio or tinalizzio.com. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored you let me into your life.